unusual things happen here. Here in verses 22, 23, 24, and 25, there seems to be a short dialogue between opponents of David and David, if David should or not allocate the goods, the spoils that they've taken after the war against Amalek from Ziklag, should they be divided amongst those troops that didn't go out to war? Rather, Shomer al Kilim, those that were staying back, that had no more breath, no more air left. They stayed in one of the areas, as we watched, what was the place mentioned? Yeah, from the Nachal Besor, from the Besor riverbed. How many hundred stayed back? 200 stayed back, 400 continue with David. And these 200 are like bad-mouthing and saying there's no reason why we should give the spoils, the goods. They didn't go out to war, they don't deserve it. And notice the response of David in verse 23. Vayomer David lo tasu cheinechai. My brothers, my dear brothers, let's not do this. Why? Follow the reading in 23. Eit asher natan Hashem lanu. It's not my victory, it's not your victory and my victory. Rather, God delivered us this victory. And therefore it's not necessarily or only limited to the fighters that are fighting. Okay? And therefore everyone deserves, the ones that fought as well as the ones that are sitting back watching over the kelim, watching over whatever tools, utensils and matters. And then David says the following in verse 24. Who would even listen to you to this opposition? It's not righteous, it's not right. Why not? Do you remember I told you the story when I would do reserve duty and I would bring the Jeep back into the garage once a week? And these garage people, not the fighters, they're the ones doing the tune-ups, all the treatments to the Jeeps, okay? They would have this gigantic, we call them Kiddush Levana letters like this. You can't miss it, these gigantic letters on top of the garage, the following pasuk of verse 24. Ki kechelek hayored b'milchama, just equally, those that go down to war, uchechelek hayoshev al kelim, and those that are preserving the kelim, the people that are in the garage, taking care and treating the tanks and weapons and everything, yachtav yachloku, together they shall divide. It sounds like that David is making a clear statement, meaning their opponents, what they're saying is not honest, is not right. And now David even adds something interesting. Pasuk Kafei 25, Vayihi. One second, sir. Me'ayom ahu v'mala. Notice what it states. Me'ayom ahu v'mala. Now, right. Now, usually the term from this day on, we don't say Me'ayom ahu v'mala. We say Me'ayom ahu v'hala. Notice what's written here. What does it say? Vayi Me'ayom ahu v'mala. Why the change? I'll explain in a moment. Vayasimeha, David made this halacha, this law, lechok ulemishpat liyisrael ad hayom hazeh. Ad hayom hazeh is the time until when the Sefer is being written. Who is the author? Which prophet wrote Sefer Shmuel? You remember?
Shmuel. This time Shmuel already died.
Okay, so Shmuel, Natan, and Gad are three contributing prophets. Until the end of their lives, this law is ironclad law. But it doesn't say Ma'yomahu Vamala, Hahala, but Vamala. And therefore Chazal learned from here. If I were to tell you, look, I have in this book letters, look above. Is looking above previously or afterwards? Previously. What he is referring to is even to the time of Avram Avinu. Do you remember when Avram Avinu went to war with his, how many soldiers? 300 and how many? 318 soldiers. And he went out to free who? His nephew, Lot, taken as into captivity by the 4 kings that won the war against the 5 kings. what did he decide how to divide or apportion the spoil amongst everyone? Not only the soldiers that fought, but also the soldiers that
I thought he didn't take anything.
he himself didn't want to take anything. But he gave even to Aner, Eshkol, Umamre, 3 Canaanites that did tshuva, that didn't believe in idolatry and so on and so forth, and he divided to them. That's what's hinted to here. What David is doing is what already Avram Avinu did. That anyone and everyone that's part of the team, whether you're a garage man or you're going out to fight, you also deserve the benefits of the spoil. Okay. Yes, what do you want to add,
I
sir?
was there one time, like it was there was a guy that was driving the bus, and it was actually, I don't want to present, it was like my friend's Abba or something like that. But he was like a hero, you know. He's
a bus driver.
His sons all go to the army and everything like that, and his sons all go to the army. He's driving all
Soldiers all the time.
all the soldiers. And
He too deserves.
right, and this one, and he was like elderly also. He's like, I had problems walking, and he, they gave like these condiments, like undergarments and shaving cream.
There you go.
All
There
these
you go.
different things.
No shaving cream.
And
Let's
the other
go.
guy was just like really, really, like, oh, he wasn't here and like this, and David Amalek really stood up like the right way.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you for the.
It's a good role model.
Absolutely. Okay. The war is ended. The grace of Hashem on him. We now see something very unusual in the next coming psukim. Kafav 26 until the end of the chapter. Kaf Zayin, Kaf Chet, Kaf Tet, Lamed and Lamed Aleph. The end of the chapter, the last 6 verses. Vayavod David al Tziklag, Vayishalach mi'ashala leziknei Yudah l'reyeu le'mor. He now makes a care package, arriving to Tziklag, and he sends, in Pasuk 26, that's right, and he sends from the spoil to who? To the elders of Yehudah, friends. And what is he saying? Here you have a bracha. From who? Here's a care package. From Mishlal Oivei Hashem. Now, what is he talking about? Ken? What is he talking about? What does this all mean? And then we read in 27, 28, 29, La'asher, meaning the friends in Beit El, which are the elders of Yehudah. La'asher beramot Negev, that is the Shimon area. V'la'asher biyatir, and all these places. And you go through all the places, what's going on? What is this? How do we understand these psukim? Okay? So I found a wonderful analysis of the matter by a rabbi called Rabbi Mordechai Turksner, and we'll review this right now ourselves, how to best understand it, okay? Number 1, the cities mentioned here that we see in verses 27 and on, according to Rabbi Kiel, one of the great publishers of Dat Mikrav Rav Kook, here, cities of Shimon, he's meeting up with the elders of Yehudah, Beit El, Ramot Negev, Chorma, Barashan, and Atach, are cities of Nachalat Shimon. Some of you know Nachalat Shimon is far south in the Negev, bordering Yehudah. Yatir and Eshtemoa, that he's bringing to the elders of Yehudah, they're cities of Kohanim. And there could be elders of Yehudah living in the city of the Kohanim. Furthermore, Hebron is, you see it? Where I'm reading now? The city of refuge.
Yes.
Okay.
Part of the Kohanim.
What's a part of the Kohanim? You have, I gave you a copy or not? Yeah. So it's one of the city of the Kohanim. We saw that already. So there are scholars of Hebron there. Page 1, of course. And then regular cities, it's looked here, Aroer, Shifmot, Rachal, and the cities Yerachmieli and Keni, he holds, those are the cities that were looted themselves by the Amalekim. So here comes David. He's sending Aleph, spoils to all these cities, and we can understand something. Look how in the Rabbi Mordechai Breuer edition of the Tanakh, published by, not yours, published by Mosada Rav Kook. Look over here. What do you notice? What do you notice how this is printed? It's not like in your Tanakh.
It's like a prayer or something.
No. We've seen this. It's like a song. Like the song of Moshe, the song of Torah. We call this half brick on half brick with an indentation. Why? Why is it written this way, unlike the edition that you have? There is a tradition. Again, Rav Mordechai Breuer, one of the great professors, rabbis of Tanakh from the Michlala, in righteous blessed memory. He was the helper producing this. I'm going to get to that point in a moment. At the end of this so-called song, what does it say in the end of 31? Look at source 2. What is this referring to? David, Rashi says, this listing of cities are cities or towns that aided David when he was fleeing from Shul. When Shul wanted to kill David, here is a list of cities, and I want to say thank you. Please take part of these spoils. Now, what is the point? You said to yourself that Avram Avinu didn't take for himself. Ken? What about David? Did David take for himself? Ken? Let's see the Abarbanel here on chapter 17, verse 54. It says the following. The text said that David did not go to despoil and pillage as the rest of the nation did. In other words, his interest was not to go and take material benefit. But his spoils were the head of the Goliath of the Plishtim and his Kalim, which David took and brought before Shaul. David in the past, he went for values. From there, they brought the head through all the Israel cities to inform the women and children until they brought it to Yerushalayim that he was a hero. So David himself is not interested in taking spoils. Now, what is he doing now? Why is he going to these cities? Aleph, they helped him hide. Furthermore, David here wants to act, we're going to suggest, almost like a king. Why? The Ralbag says here on this pasuk on verse 25, David wants to publicize the miracle that Hashem performed for David and his generosity. He sent from the spoils to the elders of Judah. Who are the elders of Judah? His allies in all the places listed here. He wants them to know the fact that I was saved, Aleph, from Shaul, Bet, in a war against Ziklag. All this is the hand of God, which helps David justify why everyone deserves to get part of these matters. Okay? And as the Midrash in source number 5 says, on the Pasuk in Midrash Tehillim, okay, it says, there's a Pasuk in Tehillim, V'tir'ei Hashem yichabed. David writes, and he honors those that revere Hashem. Okay? David came to Ziklag, and he sent from the spoils to the elders of Judah, to his allies, saying, you feared God, you saved me, you knew that I'm not going up against Israel, you know that I'm not going against Saul, you helped me you saved my life, I want to honor you, as the Midrash says. Ken, I'm skipping number 6, going to number 7, regarding the spoils. Why is he taking a dafka from there? Because these are the areas of the tribe of Judah. These are the areas of the tribe of Judah. So therefore the Radak says the spoils were from the land of Judah, as we're going to learn in a moment in the next chapter, and therefore it should go back into Judean hands, because David is favoring his own tribe. Okay, he's favoring his own tribe. Okay, we're going to learn part of these spoils. The Abarbanel says the following. He says that David did not send to them because the Amalekims took the spoils from them, for they no longer had a claim of that of which they had despaired. right? There are certain claims that the Amalekians gave up, and therefore he was basically owning them. Rather, he sent them a gift from the spoils, from the enemies of Hashem, for it was their due. Also, he intended with this to say, don't think there's a curse in eating these spoils, for their enemies will cry out to God and curse you. Remember, things that belong to Amalek were not really allowed to benefit. So he's saying here that this is what the Amalekans took from other hands. This is what the Amalekans took from these areas which they took over them.
Jewish areas.
Of course, and therefore it's not Amalekian property. It's not Amalekian property. Now, what we're showing here in the Tanakh that I have here, that this is a song, a poem, a song, a praise, in the Mossad Rav Kook series, right? There's a white series called the Dat Mikra. Maybe you've seen it. I have the most of the series put out by great scholars and professors of Tanakh, God-fearing. Okay, Professor Yehuda Kiel, he was the author to the commentary. He summarizes the end of the portion in the following way. He says the tradition gave this portion the form of a poem. Okay, I mean, you see the common words, and those of Beit El, and those of Aroer, and those of Rachel, and those the Judeans, the scholars, he's giving to the elders of Judah, of every town. Why is it written this way? Why is it written this way? It's like thanks. It's like a praise. It's like a song. David is now basically singing a song. But why is it written in this way? Because the war that he went to, with the victory of David, it's as if David is now acting as a new king. Professor Kill says this point over here. The tradition gave this portion the form of a poem. And in truth, these words are a sort of a poem. Their significance is that they were said regarding David's victory over Amalek, right? When he defeated them after they burned down the city of Ziklag. So Professor Kill says this is the beginning of the establishment of his reign. When David goes to war against Amalek, after burning down Ziklag, we learned ourselves a few weeks ago, upon who is it imposed to go to war against Amalek? The king of Israel, exactly. Right? Do you remember the opening laws of the Beit HaMikdash? Chapter in the Rambam. 3 mitzvot are incumbent upon the Jewish people when they come into the land of Israel. One is, no, in order. The first is, is appointing a king. The second is wiping out the seed of Amalek. And the third is building a Beit HaMikdash. All those seem to be incumbent upon a king. David apparently here has begun acting as if right now he's establishing his kingdom. Oh, what's happening on this? Right now, let's split the camera. Shaul went to unfortunate sources to find out what's going to happen tomorrow in the war. What is happening in the war tomorrow in the Gilboa Mountains, like we learned last week? Shaul is going to die. There's going to be punishment for him that he doesn't adhere to, does not listen to the instructions of the prophet when they fought a war against who? Against Amalek, against Agag. So right now what's happening here is David is right now, he's establishing his kingdom. Okay? This poem also includes a sort of heralding of the establishment of his reign. And as it turned out, the war itself, the war of Achish against Israel, which is happening at the same time, where? On the Gilboa Mountains overlooking the Jezreel Valley, which caused the fall of Shaul, was what caused David's ascent to the throne of the reign of Israel. In other words, it's like a similar statement. There's a statement in Psalms that we read about that if, God forbid, a righteous member of the generation falls, dies, God makes sure for a remedy that there is a rising star. In the language of the Psalms, it says Uva Hashemesh or Vizarach Hashemesh, Uva Hashemesh, and the sun shone, and the sun went down. The sun here that's going down is the lights of Saul. First king of Israel is dying. And what is rising at the same time? The victory of David against the Amalekian sources there in Ziklag, that burned the city of Ziklag, took his wife and kids as prisoners of war. So right now it's as if David is now beginning on his throne, the reign of Israel. And that helps explain, according to the Misoret, right? According to that tradition, why it's written in the form of a half brick on top of a half brick on top of a half brick. That's what it's called in the language of the Gemara Masechet Baba Batra. And we have seen this already, like when something similar things, right? Where the song of the splitting of the sea, okay? In the song of the splitting of the sea, it's a little different, but we see how it's authored, okay? Also, when we read about the song of Devorah, after the war against Sisera. He was the minister of defense for Yavin Melech Canaan. Canaanites, right. There too we see in Devorah's song how it's written inscribed. So here we're studying something very, very important, that this war against Amalek is basically the yesod, the establishment of the Malchut of David. And at the same time, David is sending a thank you letter. He's sending to all these towns some spoil, some thank you, that you guys saved my life whenever I needed a house, a village, a bed to hide in when Shaul was looking for me. So now, what we didn't see in other places of the Tanakh, we see here, these are the towns. And that's the end of the story.